How on earth did BZ Watchdog find us, and is there any end in sight?
Okay, BZ Watchdog. So, BZ Watchdog was alerted to the city of Hillsboro because of an interaction that someone he knew had with one of our police officers. This person is not a journalist. Journalists do fact checking for a lot of things. I don't really look at all this stuff, but from what I have seen, it is the vast majority of things listed as facts are not factually true. An accusation of widespread theft at the outlet mall. He got this based on an open records request where he requested, anything with theft or sexual harassment. So one of the things that we sent him was an email that I had received from a professional association offering training on sexual harassment. There sure was an email to me about sexual harassment, right? And yes, we have to turn over our texts. A journalist would contact the city and would go, hey, what can you tell me about this apparent theft? Someone could argue with me, but I just don't think it's the city's role to go back and forth with this person.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the BZ Watchdog News Network, where apparently asking questions, requesting records, and expecting public officials to tell the truth now makes you a professional agitator. Because in Hillsboro, Texas, accountability is offensive, facts are inconvenient, and transparency seems to be treated like some kind of dangerous disease. Today we're heading right back into the circus, also known as the city of Hillsboro, where they seem to have perfected the art of overcharging for records, destroying or concealing records, covering up credit card theft, brushing aside sexual harassment, and then standing in front of the public with a straight face pretending none of it is happening. Just normal city business, apparently. Now, a week or two ago, I did a video where city manager Megan Henderson tried to twist what I was saying and act like I had only pointed to one isolated theft incident. Just one. Just a little misunderstanding, right? Just a harmless little problem in a town government that always seems to have smoke pouring out of every window. But today, we're going to get into what I was really looking into and how the city is now shifted from denying the facts to stonewalling, retaliating, and flat out lying to the public. And let's be clear, I have given these people opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to correct the record, fix the mistakes, and do the right thing. But instead of honesty, we got deflection. Instead of transparency, we got obstruction. And instead of accountability, we got Megan Henderson standing in an open forum, defaming me, claiming I'm not a journalist, saying I don't fact find, and calling me a professional agitator. Well, Megan, let me help you out. When a person requests records, documents corruption, follows timelines, gathers receipts, and publicly exposes what your government is trying to hide, that's called journalism. When a city manager gets up and smears that person in public because the facts are getting too uncomfortable, that sounds a whole lot more like panic than leadership. And considering everything we've been seeing lately, police chiefs getting arrested, city managers getting arrested, city secretaries getting arrested, even mayors getting arrested, now seems like the perfect time to start asking whether Hillsboro's worst city manager deserves a good hard look from investigators too. So today we're going to break this all down. We're going to talk about what I've been investigating, what the city doesn't want you to know, and why the lies coming out of Hillsboro City Hall are getting harder and harder to cover up. But before we get into it, be sure to smash that like button, drop a comment, share this everywhere, and subscribe to the channel. Because the more they lie, the more important it is that the truth gets out. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let's get into it.
Tyranny, corruption, extortion.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant. BZ Watchdog News Network.
Chapter 1. The court order that disappeared. Let's start with a document that should have been simple, preserved, and easy to produce. Back in December 2025, Municipal Judge Nicole Crane signed an order barring me from recording court proceedings without express permission. But what made this order memorable was not just the restriction itself, it was the typo. The order used the word pubic instead of the word public. Now, normally, if a court realizes an official signed order contains an error, there should be a clean and documented way to correct it. But when I requested a copy of that order, what happened next raised a bigger issue than a typo. It appeared the original version was no longer what they wanted to stand on. And that is the point. This is not about spelling. This is about records integrity. Because when a signed judicial record appears to change after the fact, the question becomes very simple. Was the original maintained as it should have been, or was it replaced? If the original signed order was not preserved, then Hillsboro has a real problem, because official records do not belong to City Hall employees. They do not belong to a judge personally. They belong to the public record. So right out of the gate, before we even get to personnel records, credit cards, or nepotism, we already have a document trail that raises a serious question. Does the city of Hillsboro preserve records, or does it quietly swap out the embarrassing ones and hope nobody notices? Chapter 2, Missing Records and the Darrell Mayberry Apology Letter. Now let's move from the court order to another set of records that appear to have gone missing or been withheld. I submitted a request for Darrell Mayberry's personnel file. According to my source, there was an apology letter connected to alleged sexual harassment and a cover-up involving Tony Kane and Samantha Montes in early 2025. But when the personnel records came back, that apology letter was not included. That matters for one reason. If a letter exists between public employees involving workplace conduct, discipline, complaints, or employment-related issues, then there is a strong argument that it should have been placed in the personnel or HR file, or at minimum preserved in some official city record system. Then came the email trail. In the screenshots, Megan Henderson tells Eva she has confidence in her, and then later says she will reach out to Samantha and Tony to see whether anything had not been forwarded to HR for the file. Then a follow-up email from Samantha Montes appears to confirm that the letter was exchanged from Darrell to Maria, and that when Samantha asked for a copy for her own records, she was told one would not be provided. Think about that. So now the question is no longer whether the letter existed. The question is, where did it go? Who had custody of it? And who made the decision that it would not be retained or included? Because once a public record exists, especially in an employment context, people do not get to play hide and seek with it just because it became inconvenient later. And Darrell Mayberry's immediate retirement following my personnel file request only makes these missing records questions look even worse. Chapter 3, the cost estimate, the family ties, and the conflict questions. Now let's talk about the cost estimate. For roughly 80 pages, with what appears to be limited scanning and only minor redactions, I was hit with what I believe was an inflated estimate. I challenged that estimate and raised the issue with the Attorney General. And this is where the conflict questions start to pile up. City Manager Megan Henderson told me she had complete confidence in Eva Montes, the Human Resources Director who prepared that cost estimate. But Eva Montes is, according to the information I was given, Samantha Montes' cousin. So the same city environment where I'm seeking records tied to an alleged workplace conduct and later asking questions about Samantha Montes is also the environment where a relative of Samantha is involved in handling or pricing related records. That does not automatically prove wrongdoing, but it absolutely raises legitimate questions about impartiality, judgment, and whether records are being handled with the objectivity the public is entitled to expect. Because when family connections show up in the middle of records disputes, missing personnel documents, and cost estimates that look excessive on their face, people have every right to ask whether the system is being used to protect insiders rather than serve the public.
But I'm calling about this invoice. that I got from Eva Montes Friday afternoon. I'm trying to figure out how an employee file that doesn't work in the PD is coming to 2 hours of records, labor time.
Well, Darrell worked for the city for a long time. He's got I'm sure, a massive employee file, and there's a bunch of stuff that has to be gone through and redacted. So, I mean, I trust Eva. She's very conscientious. If she says it'll take her 2 hours, I think that's what it'll take her.
Well, I really want you to kind of take a look at it, because after putting Samantha Montes on blast and this being her sister,
This is not her sister.
Really?
Yes, they're distantly related. They're like cousins or something.
Chapter 4. Nepotism Allegations Inside Hillsboro City Hall. Now let's get into the nepotism issue. Based on what my source has alleged, Samantha Montes has several family members who were recently hired by the city, even though there are serious questions about whether there was budget authority, whether positions were properly available, and whether those individuals were qualified. Now, to be clear, that part is still being independently verified. I am not presenting that allegation as proven fact tonight. I am telling you that it is one of the lines of inquiry now being examined. But even without reaching a final conclusion on those hires, the underlying network is already worth noting. You just heard that Samantha Montes has been confirmed that she's related to Eva Montes, the HR director. Samantha is also married to Hillsboro police officer Dylan Moore, and both employees operate under the supervision structure involving Director of Public Safety Tony Kane. So before we ever get to the spending records, there is already a serious appearance problem here. The same names keep showing up around missing files, personnel issues, supervision, and internal records handling. And when that happens in a city government, the public is not supposed to just shrug and move on. The public is supposed to ask who reports to whom, who's related to whom, who handled what record, and who benefited from what decision. That is not agitation. That is called fact-finding. Chapter 5. The credit card records and the Amazon deliveries. Now we get to what may be the biggest issue of all, the city credit card records. The 2025 complete credit card statement appears to show a city-issued card assigned to Samantha Montes, and it contains multiple purchases from Amazon, Walmart, Sam's Club, Apple, and other vendors. What stands out is not just the purchases exist. It is where some of the supporting Amazon shipment pages appear to show the items were sent. Early in the packet, several February Amazon pages show shipments to a Hillsboro address on Waco Street. Later in the year, multiple Amazon pages show shipments associated with a Ridgehurst Drive, Godley, Texas. The same address shown in the appraisal screenshot that's shown on the screen for Samantha Lauren Montes. That is a major problem if city-funded purchases were made through a personal Amazon account and shipped to a residence instead of a city facility. Unless the city has clear documentation showing each purchase was authorized, city-related, properly received, inventoried, and used for legitimate public purpose. And the purchases themselves are what raise eyebrows. The packet appears to include repeated Amazon orders, Apple iCloud charges tied to Samantha's iPad, Walmart and Sam's Club purchases, Western Wear receipts, Halloween and candy-related orders shipped to the Godley address, and other purchases that, at a minimum, demand explanation and documentation. For example, the October section appears to show multiple Amazon candy and seasonal decor shipments going to the Godley address. The file also includes reoccurring Apple/iCloud charges that appear associated with Samantha's iPad. Now, maybe every one of those charges has a lawful explanation. Maybe every item can be matched to a city purpose, a city event, a city inventory record, and a city approval trail. But if not, then that opens the door to very serious questions about misuse of public funds, misuse of a government card, and whether the public was paying for personal or improperly documented purchases. That is exactly why these records matter. Chapter 6. The referral for criminal review. Because of what these records appeared to show, I sent documentation to Hill County Prosecutor David Holmes and District Attorney Mark Pratt seeking review. In that referral, I laid out possible violations for investigators to consider, including abuse of official capacity, theft, tampering with governmental records, and misapplication of fiduciary property. Now, that does not mean guilt has been established. It means the evidence, as I have gathered it so far, is serious enough that it should be independently reviewed by prosecutors, a grand jury, or an outside agency such as the Texas Rangers. And that is an important distinction. I'm not saying the case is finished. I'm saying the paper trail is serious enough that it should not be brushed off with talking points, insults, or a city manager standing in public and pretending the person asking the questions is the problem. Because when city money appears to flow through a city card into a personal online shopping account with deliveries tied to a private residence, that is not the moment to get defensive. That is the moment to start answering. So let's recap. We started with a judge's order that appears to prove records can be quietly replaced, or at least not preserved in their original form. We moved into the missing Mayberry apology letter and the allegation that workplace misconduct records were not properly maintained. Then we looked at the inflated cost estimate, the internal family ties, and the conflict questions surrounding who was handling sensitive records. From there, we laid out the nepotism concerns that are still being verified. And finally, we walked through the credit card packet, which appears to show city credit card purchases connected to Samantha Montes, including multiple Amazon deliveries and recurring charges that raise serious questions that have now been referred for outside review. At the end of the day, this is what accountability looks like. Not slogans, not smear jobs, not calling someone a professional agitator because they asked to see the receipts. No, accountability looks like documents, timelines, addresses, emails, purchase trails, and hard questions the City Hall does not want to answer. And in Hillsboro, Texas, the more they dodge, the more this starts to look less like confusion and more like a culture. So y'all let me know what you think in the comments. Do these records look like innocent mistakes? Or do they look like a government that got way too comfortable believing nobody would ever connect the dots? Be sure to smash that like button, drop a comment, share this everywhere, and subscribe to the channel. Because around here, we do not do damage control for public officials. We do receipts, we do records, we do timeliness, and we do the kind of fact-finding that makes comfortable people very uncomfortable. I'm your boy BZ. Sunlight is still and will always be the best disinfectant, and I'll see you in the next video.
Tyranny, corruption, extortion.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant. BZ Watchdog News Network.
BZ Watchdog.